Welcome, everybody, to the Galaxy Unlimited podcast. This is going to be our first recording, so it might be a little rough, but we're going to go ahead and get this started, and we'll figure out the fine details as we go on. So, your two hosts today, and your host for the channel is, my name is Kyle.
And my name's Chansler.
So, welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to do some basically just like introductory stuff, get our names out there, and get used to talking to a microphone. I don't think either of us have really done anything quite like this, so
No,
we're gonna
minor recording for YouTube and stuff like that. And that's about it.
right. I think we've both done like some light YouTube stuff, but nothing to this extent. So we'll get the hang of it. Might be a rough go of it, but we're excited to go ahead and get started. So, like I said, for this first podcast, I know everybody right now is talking about Twilight of the Republic. For this first podcast, we are not going to do that. We're going to do that for second podcast when the whole set is revealed, and we're just going to do like card overviews for everything because I think we're both really excited about that set coming out.
100% excited about it.
To go ahead and get started, I think we just talk about our background in like card games, what brought us to like Star Wars Unlimited, and kind of where our like competitive nature comes from. So, Chancellor, you want to go ahead and start since you got
Sure.
me into this game?
Yeah. Well, back in 2010 is where my card game experience started. It was with Magic the Gathering. And, I played some really toxic, like, poison counter deck. It was basically, if you've played Magic, you have 20 life. Poison makes you have now 10 life. And so, no one liked playing against me very much, but it was the deck that I was given by my friends. So I was like, way to set me up for success. But that was like my primary game throughout high school and a little bit outside of high school, where I got really competitive, was playing in a lot of like win-a-box tournaments, the $1,000 prize pool kind of tournaments where you'd actually win cash. I don't know if they were allowed to do that, so I won't say the name of the store. But so you'd play for cash in some places. There was a local store here that actually would give me cards, and I would go and build random decks and then just bring them back. It was kind of cool.
That's pretty sweet, actually.
Yeah. Then I had kids and a life, and so I had to kind of like dial back. But started playing Yu-Gi-Oh after that. And that was because my friend got me into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I got super competitive into Yu-Gi-Oh! Except I was super competitive with rogue decks. So like decks that aren't like the top tier meta decks, right?
Heroes and Blue Eyes.
Yep, exactly. I think my first deck was Blue Eyes. It was like the Blue Eyes.
Isn't everybody?
Yeah, Blue Eyes like structure deck with it was bad. But all that aside, my competitive nature, I think, comes from just growing up with brothers.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
I have a similar experience.
Yeah, brothers and sports, and just having the drive to want to be better than my brothers.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I mean,
relatable.
yeah. When I started playing card games, it was really interesting. I didn't have to like be better than my brothers and get hurt at the same time. I could just be better than my brothers. So, yeah, that's kind of my backing. I found Star Wars because one of our local card shops, one of the guys was just like, "Hey, you should try this game," and he kept bugging me about it. And so I finally caved and played it after I took Heroes to a tournament and didn't win a single game within my matches. And then it was all she wrote. I got rid of all my Yu-Gi-Oh stuff within like the week, and I was like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
I like Star Wars. It's just way better.
Yeah, and I think both of us grew up in a time where Star Wars was one of the big things when the movies were coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say I'm less of an overall like Star Wars fanatic, even though my like older brother is also like huge into Star Wars. But like most people who grew up at our age, I've had a love for the series. I mean, it was very impactful growing up. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I am a I'm a really big nerd. I sent you the picture of my Lego Star Wars stuff that I have now started to accumulate again. So,
I mean, it sounds limited to be fair, so it's hard to find Star Wars stuff. It was what it sounds like. Yeah. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and get a little bit into my background. Obviously, grew up with Star Wars, love the series. My older brother, I think, has read every single Star Wars book that exists.
That is insane. That's a lot of books.
He is way into it more than I am, and I'm slowly but surely getting him into the game as well. Oh. But I have a similar experience, just not as much with Magic. So I grew up when Yu-Gi-Oh was in its inception, and would play with my older brother with our, unsleeved 100 card decks and just
oh my gosh
and just duel on the carpet of our mobile home, and he would always kick my ass. And until I matured and figured out why, I was like, oh, maybe Dark Magician is way better than using all the materials in your hand for a crab turtle. And so my favorite monster is Red Eyes Black Dragon, and if for those of you that don't know Yu-Gi-Oh, Red Eyes Black Dragon is one of the main monsters, as well as Dark Magician. And Dark Magician, which was my brother's favorite monster, happens to have 100 more attack points than Red Eyes Black Dragon does. So already a bad matchup for me. But that's kind of where my intro to card games started, and then like most people, I kind of got out of Yu-Gi-Oh as time went on. Being a little kid and growing up with it, it was fine, but my older brother got tired of kicking my ass, so he eventually quit the game, which led me to eventually quitting the game. And then I would say during high school, I didn't really touch card games. I would call myself what I would say would be a closet nerd. I didn't want anybody to know that I was like this super nerdy guy, even though I was like into all that stuff.
You should have just came to our high school. We would have treated you just fine.
Maybe. Some of the classes in my high school were pretty brutal in terms of like, I don't know. I don't want to say bullying because I feel like that term gets overused, but they were just like, teasing a lot.
Nerd.
Yeah, nerd. Basically, yeah. But yeah, so high school, middle school, whatever, I didn't really play card games all that much. But it actually wasn't until my senior year of college when Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links came out.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Is when I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! I started grinding Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links and just enjoying the crap out of that. I think it took me, I want to say, 100 tries to pull that stupid Toon World from beating Pegasus, if anybody remembers that.
Oh my gosh.
That was so stupid. But eventually I started like collecting cards for the aesthetics, right? And of course that's the same thing I tell myself whenever I get into a card game. It's like, oh, I'm just going to buy a few because I like the art.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm just going to get it because it looks cool.
It never ends there. It never does. So eventually I started creating a deck. And the first deck I built, because apparently I didn't learn from when I was 10 years old, was Red Eyes Black Dragon.
Oh no.
And this was in 2017. So I took Red Eyes Black Dragon to locals in like May of 2017 and got completely destroyed by Zodiac. And I won't go too much into this because I don't want this to turn into like a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. But yeah, so anyway, got competitive into Yu-Gi-Oh! Was doing that for a very long time through the good formats and the bad formats.
Because the bad formats weren't actually like insatiably bad.
Yes, not like recently.
Yeah.
The one format I remember that I was just miserable in was Goki format.
Goki?
If you were playing during that.
Wow, no, I wasn't. I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! It was Drytron Fairy format.
Oh.
And I had Drytron Fairies built in the... I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is the best story ever. So my first ever tournament, my buddy takes me to, and nobody's there. There's like 4 people. And I was like, oh, this is my first tournament. They're whatever. And the guy's like, well, you can go first. I'm like, okay, thank you.
You can go first.
And I just start going combo with Drytron. Because I had practiced this for like 2 months before I actually played in the tournament. because my buddy and I would just play at work.
Right.
And he goes, "Oh shit, you're playing Drytron?" I said, "Yeah, it's Drytron Fairy." He goes, "Damn it! Why did I let you go first?
Shouldn't have let you go first."
Yeah, my bad.
Oh,
It's just
no, that's
funny.
totally
It's
fine.
like I'm like the guy that comes and snipes the tournament.
That makes sense though, right? Because like somebody comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, this is my first tournament, my first locals." You're like, "Okay, they're probably on Blue Eyes or something."
Yeah, they probably bought the structure deck and
yeah.
Nah, dude, I'm competitive. He didn't know.
Now he knows.
Ironically, I tied every single round.
Drytron going into time? No way.
Yeah.
So I would say Goki format was the worst one, and then I quit Yu-Gi-Oh in 2020. Yeah, 2020 with the release of Mystic Mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That card was miserable.
I hated it.
Oh man, that card was
so
miserable.
much. You put in anything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but we won't rant about that too much.
Yeah.
But I'll.
Those of you that know.
Those of you that know, definitely know. So yeah, they eventually banned that card, and it took me a few months to get back into the game. I started playing in Drytron format, which is, I think, the first time I met you.
Yeah.
We were playing at a shop that's closed now. They're no longer open, but since then, Chansler and I have been like seeing each other at Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals for years. And I think I quit another time. I don't remember why.
I can't remember. I think you just, either the format was stale or there was something to go with like Magic that you were kind of doing. I think it was Magic.
Right. That's right. That's when I started getting into Magic.
Yeah, and you were like, well, it's just, and don't get me wrong, it's like overall, I like Magic the Gathering. I would have to say I like it more than Yu-Gi-Oh! For separate reasons, and I like Yu-Gi-Oh! More than Magic for separate reasons, but I like Star Wars more than both of them because they both suck. But like,
accurate.
Yeah, the fact is like when Yu-Gi-Oh! You just have to play your line, and yeah, you might have some, interaction with that, but mostly it's just you knowing your play. Where Magic, it's not only is it exhausting mentally because you have to have resource management and everything else, and worry about the other opponent disrupting your play. But that's cool. I don't even know where I was going with that. They both suck, but like, I get kind of maybe where you were going with like, well, Matt, it's different. Mm-hmm. It's just different.
Yeah, and that might have been what it was. I might have just needed a change up from the format. I can't remember what format that was during, but I moved to Magic and I played that for 6 months. I got into the modern format.
Oh no!
And for those of you that know Modern, it is 1, very difficult to learn, and 2, very, very expensive.
Very. Unless you build my deck, I built blue-red Prowess Wizards. It was like $25.
Oh my gosh, that's funny actually. Yeah. I started playing Modern when Is It Murktide was the best deck.
Oh.
Murktide Region is a house, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
And I think I topped 1 locals in 6 months. That game is very hard to learn. I'm not going to say that Magic is like easy. I would never say that. That game is very difficult, especially in a format as intense as Modern.
Yeah.
And then the One Ring came out. And everybody was jamming the One Ring. And it just got too expensive for me. And the learning curve was really steep. So I went back to Yu-Gi-Oh! And we've been playing that ever since. And then I want to say 2 months ago,
it was about 2 months, I think.
Chancellor started harassing me about this Star Wars game. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I like Star Wars. It sounds cool, but I'm sure it's just another, like, similar to Magic knockoff card game, And tell me if you've heard this story before. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Format got stale and boring.
Yes. Very.
Because Konami's a great company. So I eventually gave Star Wars Unlimited a try, and I loved it. I think the game is incredibly well balanced. I think the style of gameplay they've implemented, where the turns are shared, quote unquote, is a really, really good, really cool concept. And I actually like card games with resource systems. I don't like I like Yu-Gi-Oh, but just slamming all your cards on the table and hoping your opponent doesn't have enough hand traps to stop you is, I mean, it can get stale.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny because I remember I was like, oh, I'm trying to convince Kyle to come and play this freaking game with me. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to show up at locals on Saturday. And I still had heroes at this point. And I was going to keep it. I was like, I'm going to keep heroes just in case I get, because I don't want to just not talk to anybody ever again, right? And so I got rid of it. I'm not going to not talk to them, but I still got rid of it. Anyway, so I show up to locals, and I got my ass beat down by just, I don't even know what just came out recently. Some stupid level 6 shit.
Gosh.
Anyway.
Fiendsmith.
Yeah, Fiendsmith. That. And so I'm not winning a game. And so I drop, right? Second round, I'm like, I am miserable. My head, like I was getting warm. I was getting that frustrated.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't play the game.
Yep.
And so, sorry, my beard's poking the mic. So I couldn't play the game, and I drop, and I remember I looked at you, and I was like, I'm going to get my Star Wars stuff. And you were just like, oh. And I like, go and I get it. And the next thing I see is Kyle, and there was one other guy, but Kyle and another
Marcus.
one of Marcus downstairs, and they're buying what is it? Shadows of the Galaxy structure decks.
Yep.
And I was just like, yes, yes. And so
Sucked me in.
we went upstairs, and he's opening them up and looking at them, and I have all of my stuff out. I mean, it was just like, I'm ready to show you everything. Yeah, that was kind of the...
And that was where it started.
Yeah.
And so right after that, I was not having fun with the Yu-Gi-Oh format. Similar to Chancellor's experience he just described. They released an engine that was prohibitively expensive as well as just broken beyond belief.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, it's not even played right now because they released more broken stuff.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Azamina is out, and Azamina is the new thing.
Oh my god.
But anyway, right after he showed me the cards and showed me like how the game works, I went home and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna find a leader that I like. And so I only play this deck. I solo Emperor Palpatine, and I really enjoy the game. It hooked me into the game pretty darn quick.
Yeah, I don't like when you take my stuff.
Palpatine's ability is pretty good. Also, he's got a big butt.
Yeah, he's actually really difficult to deal with.
I love playing with Palpatine. But anyway, I forgot where I was going with this. I think I was just saying, yeah, it didn't take me long to get into the deck. I sold my Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, I think, the next week. And I was hanging on to like my high rarity hand traps and like extra deck stuff, but that is also now listed online for sale. So I'm getting completely out of Yu-Gi-Oh and just dedicating to Star Wars. So yeah, kind of a long story between the two of us, but I think we both developed, Chancellor before me, I think we both developed a very strong love for the game.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things where, like, even for me, for rogue deck purposes, right? So rogue deck, just for those that are maybe even new to card games or whatever.
Oh, that's a good point.
The rogue deck is like the non-meta, the non-top decks, right? So as an example, in Star Wars, you have like Sabine green, Boba yellow, Boba green, Bosk blue. By the way, had a really funny matchup against that last. We stopped playing the normal matchup for Bosk green and my Luke deck, and then I played Vader against Bosk blue, and it was hilarious. Anyway, I got double crate dragoned. So yeah, it's not a unique.
Crate dragon's a rough card.
It's really stupid how it's not unique. Anyway, anyway. Just the ability to play the off-meta decks and still have a viable chance. Like, I love the deck Luke Cunning. Mm-hmm. I told you that I've probably made the mistake of building multiple decks because I have like Tarkin, Vader, Luke. I did build a Bosk. I don't know where it is.
Somewhere in your life.
Yes, somewhere. I'm kind of tampering with Vader ECL because I like to ramp quick.
Yes.
And if you can ramp quick, 5 life doesn't really matter.
Right.
If you can control the game. Anyway, but just the ability to buy a structure deck and put a little bit more into it and then be competitive is something that I really enjoy. You don't have to spend exuberant amounts of money, even though you can.
Yeah, you can.
For like the foils and stuff, or just good cards. Like Bosk is good, so cards are going to be a little bit more expensive. You know, the what they call baby Luke, the 7-drop Luke, where you know -3 or -6, and you have restore 3. It's just broken.
That card's so good.
Like you can get these cards, and they're not incredibly expensive, but they are expensive. You know, you still have to kind of like respect the what is it? The economy of the game in a way, because you know, expensive could mean different things in like Magic compared to Yu-Gi-Oh compared to now Star Wars, right?
Absolutely.
The one thing I do like too is the playsets are at 3.
Yes, absolutely.
So that makes it way better.
Yeah, that means the expensive cards. For those that may not be aware, in Magic the playset is 4, in Yu-Gi-Oh it's 3. So Star Wars Unlimited, the playset being 3. 1, I think, is good from a deck building standpoint, since the decks are limited to, or the minimum amount, which people usually play, is 50 cards.
Yeah.
I think that helps with like unique deck building and variety.
Yep.
But also, you don't have to buy 4 copies of all the expensive shit.
Yeah.
So that is probably the nice part. And to touch on what Chancellor was saying just now, he is 100% correct. The game is so like easy to invest into. Whether you go high rarity or low rarity, like none of the like staple cards that I would call are prohibitively expensive like they are in Magic or in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Like in Yu-Gi-Oh, the best staple card that just released in their latest set is $130 a piece for the lowest rarity version. And it's just insane. Like, I think a low rarity Star Wars deck would cost that much.
Yeah, no. So the thing is what's crazy, and to kind of go with the rarity thing, right? So in Yu-Gi-Oh, rarities are like the supers, and there's like the type of foiling on the card, right? And in Star Wars, the rarity, of course, you have the legendaries and everything else, commons, rares, uncommons, but it's the foiling, right? And so you have the, I guess you can call it rarity, but like you have the hyperspace foils, and so you can buy those and choose to like pimp out your deck, and which is, I mean, I want to do it, but not foil. I just want to get them hyperspace. But you can choose to do that, and yeah, it's going to cost a little bit more, and your deck might not be as good still, but who cares? It's for aesthetics, right?
Right.
And then you can choose to not do that, and the price change is completely significant, and you can still have a chance to steal games away. Which is really cool. Unless you're playing against the Bean Green. That deck is just nuts.
That deck is not fun.
But yeah, I mean, the cost of entry to the game, I would say, is significantly better.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. To dive a little bit personally into that, I am a huge rarity whore, so I do the hyperspace foils. And I had invested so much into Yu-Gi-Oh that like I'm selling pretty much everything in Yu-Gi-Oh that I have, and haven't even scratched the surface of like, and I have a lot of Star Wars cards at this point. I hasn't even scratched the surface of what I had spent on Yu-Gi-Oh over the years. So yeah, the game is just really affordable, whether you go like hyperspace foil or just hyperspace or just a regular generic card or regular foil. Like a good example of a card that's like frequently played where you can see like the price difference isn't really that much is something like Super Laser Technician, which I think is like $2 for just a regular uncommon or common or whatever it is. And the hyperspace foils that I bought for my deck, for my Palpatine deck, are like $6 a piece. So that is a card that's played in almost every villainy green deck. And
it's a staple. Yeah, so the non-full, the regular ones are like 30 cents.
Yeah, they're not even $1. So it's just like, you can, however much you wanted to invest in the game, it's not going to be prohibitively expensive. It's just going to be as expensive as you want to make it, really. Whether you're into high rarity and have a problem like me, or if you're reasonable and don't spend way more money than you should, like Chansler.
Like me, and have 2 kids and you know, my wife, who
a responsibility
I love very much, but we gotta spend our money on stuff, and so no, it's just great. It's fantastic, and even when I would even have to say, even with 2 kids, 2 dogs, 3 cats, and my wife and I, it's a full house.
It's a full house.
We, I could choose to still really spend a good amount of money and really pimp the deck out, like realistically, the cards that I would want to get, hyperspace foil even, would be roughly 10 to 15, maybe $20 each.
Right.
And yeah, that adds up when you go to 50 cards. We get that.
Definitely.
But it's still something that's doable over a span of time for me. Even having I don't like to say my family's barriers, but like even with those economic challenges.
There we go.
of spending, of having to take care of a family and everything else. So yeah,
being an adult and stuff.
Yeah, adult problems.
Gross. Gross. Right now, I mean, I have expenses and stuff of my own, but nothing. Like, I don't have kids. I have a wife and a dog, so we're living pretty cheap right now. So being able to pimp out my deck like I want it to is a nice luxury. But I don't know where I was going with that point.
Well, I think that basically it's like you're saying, like, even though you have the more financial freedom in that, it's still not painful.
Right.
To purchase these things,
Right.
And even if you were to have a child or whatever down the road, it would affect your priorities, but at the same time, like, I feel as if the game is still so good to its player base, and we'll get into that too, possibly because of the reaction that we got from, was it Fantasy Flight, is just amazing. But like, just even with all this stuff, you can still find a way to come into the game and to play it and to still be competitive, and that is going to be a successful card game. It's going to be a successful card game because everybody at any tier of economic tier that you could find yourself in. Get out! Don't call me right now. I'm in a podcast. You'll be able to play the game and enjoy yourself. So,
yeah, absolutely. I don't think we can emphasize the point that we're making enough.
I think we've kind of killed it.
Droned on a little bit for a while. But yeah, it's just really nice to be in a game that's not like hurting your wallet every time you buy something. Like, we keep jumping back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that's a game we both played so much.
Yeah.
And right now, I was actually doing this the other day because the Yu-Gi-Oh! Guys are always trying to get people back into the game when they quit.
Yeah, we got yelled at.
Yeah, pretty much. We did.
Yeah.
But it's okay. He's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, so. Yeah. He wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It was just a funny yell.
What are you guys doing? You guys are Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. Not anymore.
No.
But I was looking at prices for like the deck I would want to build because they released some cards that are interesting recently.
Heroes.
If I wanted to build that deck, it would cost me like $1,300 for low rarity stuff, and I don't want to pay that.
Can you imagine if I wanted to be competitive in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I went to my wife and I said, "Sorry, we can't feed our kids this week.
Yeah.
Like this month, no, our kids are not going to eat
mac and
dirt.
Cheese all month.
They can have grass outside that grows for free." I don't actually do that.
Yeah,
Disclaimer: I feed my kids; they're great. But my wife would look at me like I was crazy. Well, as anyone would if I was telling my wife to feed our kids grass. But like, if I were to ask her to spend $1,300 on cardboard, she would go, "No."
Yeah, like, what are you talking about? No.
Yeah, she's like, I can't No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, as any rash person should say no.
Yes. Yes.
Unless you're, okay.
Unless you're wealthy, like our friend Kevin.
Dig at you, Kevin.
Kevin, if you're listening to this, you know who you are.
I hope you listen to it.
I hope you do. But to touch on the point that you just made, let's talk about the company, Fantasy Flight Games.
Yes.
Because we are both. I'll go through my experience, and then Chancellor will go through his.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, started with Yu-Gi-Oh! For those that have been in the game, you know exactly what Konami is like. They don't give a damn about you. They do not communicate with the player base except for product marketing or updates to the Forbidden Limited list.
And that barely shows up ever.
And that barely shows up ever. And they don't even give you a time frame of when the list is going to be. They'll say, oh, the list is going to be in the next few months. So if the format is just pure garbage, like Goki format was, where you're getting hand looped for 4 and starting your turn with 1 card in hand, that format can last sometimes up to a year.
Yeah.
And so going from that, quitting Yu-Gi-Oh! The first time, and going to Magic, where they are tweeting like 8 times a day, and they're like, oh, we're releasing like 3 separate products this month. It's like, holy crap, this is like communication overload.
Yeah. And product overload. Let's
get that out of the way real quick. Magic, you're printing way too much stuff.
Yeah, agreed. Go back to 2010, please. With your three sets in a block, and then your core set, and that's what we had, and that's all we had to play with, and it was good for like 6 months to 8 months or however long it was, maybe even a year. I don't know, but it was good. Go back, and maybe I'll play.
Yeah,
or not, because I like Star Wars too. So
yeah, I like Star Wars. But yeah, so Magic. Like the other thing about Magic, I guess since we're on the topic. I hate opening sealed product in Magic because there is so much fluff. There is so much fluff. There are like 300 to 400 card sets, and like 50 of the cards are good. It's just there's so much fluff.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like if you look at the ratios for that with like Yu-Gi-Oh! I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Does like the same thing in a way. And the one thing I like about Star Wars is like, even though if you look at, again, ratio wise, and I don't have numbers in front of me because I'm not prepared, but next time maybe. It's just the idea that to me, I feel like I've pulled better cards in Star Wars, because not only do the hyperspace not necessarily take your rare slot, you can pull 3 great pulls out of a Star Wars pack.
Right.
So what they're doing is astronomically better than Yu-Gi-Oh! and Magic. I mean, remember when Forbidden Droplet was reprinted?
Yes.
And I forget which set it was. It was a Christmas time set, basically. Mm-hmm. My wife bought me a box. I pulled it. I almost lost my mind. None of the other cards were worth a damn thing. Just Forbidden Droplet, and it paid for my box.
Yes. That set was notoriously bad. It was, how was it called? It was like Legendary Duels from the Deep or something like that. And that was the first time they had reprinted Forbidden Droplet outside of an OTS Ultimate Rare, which are ridiculously expensive and ridiculously hard to pull. So, yeah, Forbidden Droplet had a hefty price tag on its reprint, even though it was at a lower rarity.
Mm-hmm.
And
so like over $100 when I pulled it.
Yeah, it was over $100. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and then you go buy Star Wars, right? And yeah, Star Wars, I think the booster boxes are what, like 100 and... You can maybe get them for like 120 from like a local card shop, LGS or whatever you want to call it. Is that anyway? I've had an energy drink, guys. I'm sorry.
LGS, local game store?
Yeah.
People know.
Yeah. So you can do that, or you can go on like tcgplayer.com and find them for like $100. I'm not saying to do that because a lot of you can. A lot of local game stores sell on TCG Player, but
true.
You again, even though you might have to spend a couple extra, tens for a box, you're gonna pull the value more than likely out of it. And
Yes.
now that prices have settled, it could be a little bit more difficult. And I think that Fantasy Flight Games has, again, we kind of get back on this segue back into
circle back around. We haven't forgotten.
Is the fact that they listen, and the product is being pushed more.
Yes.
So they had supply chain issues because they didn't release as much product in the first set. And I wish I would have started in the first set.
Me too.
But I started in the second. I literally showed my first ever experience playing was during the pre-release for Shadows of the Galaxy.
Okay.
And I went 2 and 2. And
hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. I had Han Blue.
Ooh.
And I was playing a bunch of Grit Wookiees. And it was fantastic.
I got Chewbacca the other day. Chewbacca's a strong card.
Nice. It's good. It's good. But yeah, so I mean, kind of back to what Kyle was saying with Konami, they don't really listen, right? They push product out to make money, which is good business to a sense, right? But like, because people are gonna love the game regardless. But at the same time, it's bad because people are leaving, like me and Kyle.
Yes.
And the Magic is just, they communicate too much. One person, or I'm going to use this as like a very gross exaggeration, but like someone complains, one guy would complain, and then someone gets fired, right? Like if everyone remembers the Amonkhet block, or the whatever you want to call it, the Hour of Devastation block, whatever, those really crappy Egyptian style cards. Like it looked like kind of like the papyrus, right? Like it wasn't Egyptian, but like it had the Egyptian style to it, which was great.
Yeah.
The aesthetic was cool, but then the writing was just a tree. You couldn't read it. And that guy got fired. Yeah, because he designed it and people complained about it, and so they fired him. Yeah. And it's like, okay, like give someone a shot here, and you don't have to always pander to the people in a way, you know?
Right. If they're being unreasonable, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when I was playing Destiny.
The
Vex Mythic class, if everyone knows the Destiny, everyone got pissed about it. They nerfed the crap out of it. It was still good, but, you know, there were so much changes because so many people would just complain about, I don't want to have to grind to get the good stuff. I'm like, well, I did. So I should be rewarded for that.
Right.
It's kind of the same for, not really the same, but like it's almost the same for these card games where people they buy product, you know, they go through the grind at work, and then they get the best card ever, which is the debit card or credit card, and then they buy the actual cards. And the thing about Fantasy Flight is the prize pool was a little lackluster for the planetary qualifiers. And if you don't know what that is, it's like the regional tournament for Star Wars, and they're in season 0. They've announced that. But they heard enough of everybody. Everybody was just kind of like, this is really lackluster. Like, this is not good. Like, it's not terrible. It could be worse, but it's just not what you would expect from a regional tournament. And they listened. And they said, we are doing and going to do better.
Right.
And we are going to bring more relevant cards to the prizing. And we're going to do this because they gave a crap.
Right.
Like they looked at us, they saw what we were saying, and they're like, you know what, they're right. Yeah. And I think the humbleness of a company to be able to do that, you got me for life. As long as we can keep, as long as we can keep Star Wars going, keep it up.
Right. As long as the game survives, I'll be playing it. So, you know, keep doing the good things that the community enjoys. Keep pulling new people in, and you know, yeah. So anyway, good job, Fantasy Flight Games. If you ever hear this, but yeah, and I think the thing I like the most is it wasn't just like a generic press release. You know, like they had details of what they were going to do, like the steps they were going to take to fix it. They're like, yeah, you know what, the cards and the prizing, not that relevant. You know, people were looking for more iconic cards to be prizing, and I was like, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, as you would think, right? So like for these planetary qualifiers, you know, oh god, dude, you imagine like stamped Lukes or Vaders oh my lord, expensive. They would be expensive, but it would give you that, they would be really sweet. But it would give you that want to go and compete at a high level. And again, You could just show up with your rogue deck and all of a sudden win a planetary qualifier. It can happen. The odds might not be very good,
Right.
but it still can happen with good gameplay and if they draw bad.
Yep, good gameplay and luck.
Yes, and so which is any card game, right? But
Right.
even again, it's so balanced that one deck isn't just drawing 6 cards because that's the hand size, and then just you lose.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it works. You can dig yourself out of holes. It's just, again, sometimes you might not get your draws, and that's fine. And it's Sabine Green, right? Best deck in the format. I would have to say hands down best deck in the format minus Boba. I think they just kind of flip-flop a little bit.
Yeah.
But even those decks, right? You can sit there and have a great opening hand and then dirtle.
Yep.
And it's like, oh crap,
Yep.
And that's why Luke Cunning, MVP, it has a really good matchup against both of them.
That's a nice card in your hand. It'd be a shame if I used Spark of Rebellion.
Yeah, to take it away. And so, no, I think that Fantasy Flight Games did a really good job at listening, but also not overcorrecting, right?
Yes.
There is that. They were like, we hear you. We're going to make some changes.
Right.
And they respect the player base, but they also are like kind of that thing of like, you also need to kind of see where we're coming from.
Right. Yeah.
And that in my opinion is fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And here's some like reasonable, actionable changes. We hope you guys will accept these. And I think overall the player base is like, yeah, please. That's awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Can you imagine if Konami did that?
They never will.
No.
They'll never hear this either.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like people were like demanding like, listen, Fantasy Flight, I want a Porsche if I win a planetary qualifier. It's like, come on, guys, like, let's be reasonable here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just some maybe more relevant cards, and it gives you the incentive to show up.
Yes,
because there's people, unfortunately, dropping from these planetary qualifiers. Yes. I'm hoping I still get the email saying that I have a slot to go and play in it.
Heck yeah.
But regardless, if I don't, I'm going to go just so I can experience the atmosphere of the planetary qualifier, see what's going on, see how decks are doing, and then maybe hit up some vendors if they're there.
Yep.
But yeah. But on another note, I don't really know how long we wanted to go for this one, but let's just talk about the decks that we chose again.
Oh yeah.
You touched on it a little bit. Because I mean, if we were talking positive things about Fantasy Flight Games and how they've handled it, we could probably be here for another hour. But like,
very true.
So we'll start with you, Kyle. The deck that you chose, and let's go why.
Okay, so I chose Palpatine because as I was reading through the cards for the first time with Chancellor, I was like, okay, Super Laser Technician reminds me of like playing green in Magic. Yep. And so like one of my favorite color combinations, I guess, to play in Magic was Jund. And so Jund with like the reanimation as well as the ramping, as coupled with a bit of removal, was the kind of the play style that I really like to play. And so I started with Palpatine Yellow was what I started with. Because you can play cards like Palpatine's Return, you can play the strong Star Destroyers like Devastator, and Relentless, and Chimera, but I cut Chimera pretty quick once I started to learn the game. And then you also get to play cards that reanimate, like Palpatine's Return, which is an exceptionally strong card. And I my first tournament, I went 03 or 04 or something. I was like, well, I mean, learning curve, card games, it is what it is. But I still, even through that experience of losing a lot, I still enjoyed like the play style of Palpatine. So now I've gone through a couple different versions. I've tried variations of Palpatine, and I've landed on Palpatine Blue is like my go-to. Because it's reanimation coupled with removal, and I still get the ramping aspect of like Super Laser Technician and resupply, and then the Palpatine effect is just so strong.
It's gross.
Taking a damaged unit is just so good.
Yeah, especially since you've done the Salacious Crumb edition, and you're able to just ping it right away, and then you can even use then your Palpatine's ability to ping another one and then have a choice.
Yep. Salacious Crumb has been a very strong recent addition to the deck because of the damaging ability as well as against ramp decks like frickin' Sabine, or against aggro decks, I mean, rather. Like frickin' Sabine, you need the healing and you need it immediately.
True.
Because they are going to kill you quick.
Yep.
My fun story, actually. My second or third tournament, I want to say, somebody that was brand new to the group, to the locals, was borrowing somebody's Sabine deck, and they went like 3-1.
Yeah, they went 3-1 with it. Just
absurd.
That's how good it is, and it's just so aggressive, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that once more cards are printed, things will be handled more. Twilight of the Republic's got some really promising prospects.
Yes, absolutely.
But again, we'll talk about that next podcast.
I want to talk about it now.
I know.
We just don't have enough time.
Yeah, but anyway, sorry.
No worries. You got more? Oh, okay.
No.
I'll continue. But yeah, so anyway, that's kind of where we landed with Palpatine. Palpatine Blue has been the variation that I've enjoyed the most. Mm-hmm. Although I did finally purchase a new leader to give a go when we do some playtesting today. I'm going to give a go of Vader Blue. I think we've got an interesting list for that. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of where I started. And as we alluded to earlier in the podcast, Chancellor got me into the game. And I just immediately, after like 2 locals, I was hooked. So
yeah, it's really good.
Love the game. I've been soloing Palpatine ever since. We're gonna keep soloing Palpatine. That's probably what I'm gonna play for the planetary, until Twilight of the Republic comes out, in which I'm probably gonna build like 4 or 5 decks.
Yeah, oh man, again, the game itself is not expensive. It's your drive to want to have cool things and to do fun stuff with them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, that's me. So let's go ahead and start with Chancellor, your origins into Star Wars Unlimited.
Well, I guess the deck choice that I had, I bought this. Which structure deck did I buy? Spark of the Rebellion. So I actually started with that one. And they had a few of them available at Wild Things. And so our local game store. And so I was looking at it, and our friend Nick, he just kind of smiled at me because he'd been bugging me since the beginning of the game. He was like, "You got to play Star Wars." He's like, "Are you going to actually play Star Wars?" And I was like, "Yes, I think I'm going to buy the deck, and I'm going to see how it's doing." And then
You convinced us, Nick.
Yep, way to go, Nick. I say it like it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
it's a great thing.
It's a great thing.
But no, so I started playing against my own deck, my own Vader deck with I'd drag my kid in there and be like, "Hey, play this deck," and just try to beat me. And she had no idea what she was doing, so I would just stomp every single time. She's like, "This is boring." And so I started going online and finding some online play, just because I didn't have very much of the product. It wasn't very released. Not that I'm saying that's a bad thing to do, because I think if you want to get some quick play testing in, go for it.
Yeah.
But the paper part of it to me is just better. You're handling the cards. It's just a different feeling.
Absolutely.
So I come to my first locals past the pre-release, and I'm playing Cunning Luke. And this is very dirtily still structured deck, heavy Luke.
Yeah.
And I was having to go to game 3 with Bobby Yellows. And so it was competing.
That's strong.
And I'm like, okay, this is great. I think I didn't win a match though for at least 2 weeks. It took me 2 weeks, and I was tweaking the deck, and then I brought Vader in and did really well with Vader, almost automatically.
Vader's a strong leader. Doesn't see a lot of competitive play, surprisingly, but very strong.
Yeah. So I kept playing Luke. I kept putting stuff into Luke. I still have to get some more things for Luke, including Baby Luke's.
Tough card.
Yeah, it's a great card. But the new set coming out again. I'm excited. There's gonna be so much good stuff for Cunning Luke.
So much.
At least Cunning Vigilance, blue, yellow. If you don't know the aspect types, but that's kind of where I fell in love with it. Just being able to grab a structure deck and go crazy. I played Luke this last week, and even though I got my butt whipped according to my record, I still was going to game threes. There was still things that I could have done better and played better, made different choices, and I would have stolen games. I beat Bosk ECL handily.
Which is another very strong deck.
Yeah. I didn't beat him in the whole round. I beat him the first game.
Well,
but
sure.
The first game we played, it was just, I just went crazy, and he ramped like no one else's business. But I just kept that mid range push going in, and then just dropped big bombs at the end, and with like Han. Solo, it's like a first strike unit. It's really good.
Hell yeah.
And then I don't remember the other name of that card for some reason. It's the one where I gain 8 life and then it takes 8 damage and has Sentinel in space.
Oh no, I can't remember it either.
Yeah, well, that's whatever.
Yeah.
Again, if I'm more prepared next time. So just to be able to have those cards and stuff really help, but at the same time, it's just fun to play. The style of the game is so much fun. Being able to play a chopper, that little,
Chopper gets
anti-human rights activist. No, so many war crimes. But for Chopper, being able to play a Chopper turn 1 or an R2D2 turn 1 is insane. I can either
so good.
I can manipulate my deck, or I get to manipulate theirs and make them Millicarp with Chopper, which feeds into then Ezra with having a Spectre, and then I can do an extra damage. Ezra makes me play cards off the top of my deck, and then Kanan, which is hilarious. And I've done this before where I've had Chopper, Kanan, and Ezra on the board, and I attack with Kanan, and they mill 3 cards, and it's 3 cards they needed.
It's always the cards you need.
Exactly. And so again, it's just if I can start to, and it's one thing I've started to actually be able to do, is recognize the line of play that works best with it. As soon as I really fine-tune that and then fine-tune the deck itself, I feel like it's just going to be very powerful.
Definitely. Yeah. I think when we first started playtesting, I wasn't sure on Luke's viability or how strong it seemed, just because I wasn't familiar with the game. Chansler and I had gone back and forth, and he won some matches, I won some matches, and so it was just I'm not sure how strong this deck is going to be compared to the meta decks, but I think Luke is one of those decks that really rewards critical thinking and skilled play because of the cunning aspect, which, I mean, fitting, right? Cunning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Luke is a really solid deck. I think just overall, when I started, I really undervalued the tools that heroic decks already have, because villainy is just so appealing, right? Mm-hmm. And I will say I've stolen many a Kanan Jarrus with my Emperor Palpatine.
Yes, you have.
I love that ability. But yeah, so yeah, that same vein I think is a really good point of going back to what you were saying earlier. Even those fringe rogue decks, quote unquote, like Luke, are viable.
Well, look at Bosk. Bosk was considered a rogue deck, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh wait,
Bosk is good.
It's actually good. I can actually do things with it. It's
yeah. Turns out if you resolve a death mark, it's pretty strong.
Yeah, exactly.
Bosk has really become a powerhouse lately, it seems.
Mm-hmm. And Bosk Blue for a hard control deck is very punishing. That was the story I wanted to.
So much healing.
I played my Vader Green. We first Bosk ECL beat me at Luke Cunning, 2 games to 1. So we went to game 3. It was very grindy, very good games. I also played a Palpatine Green that were grindy and good, and they went to. I think he actually 2-0'd me. Yeah, Team Palpatine. But the Vader Green matchup against Bosk Blue was hilarious. So I did get double crate dragoned in a game, which was hilarious. People were laughing, and I was just like, well, you can laugh about it. It's fine. I'm laughing about it.
It's not every day you get double crate dragon.
Yeah, but the next game, it was handily won by Vader Green. And then game 3 was hilarious. He milled me out, and I was just kind of existing. And so I was just like, yeah, I'll just scoop, because the cool thing about Star Wars is once you mill the deck, aka discard all the cards from your deck, or you draw them all, or however it works, you don't just lose automatically. You take 3 damage per card that you would have drawn. So I took 6 damage a turn right away.
Right.
And he had an Avenger.
Ooh, yeah.
And some other stuff, but I did have a Devastator in hand. Played the Devastator, killed the Avenger, and I was like, all right, I just need to, I can kill him before he kills me, basically. And then he powered the dark side of me. I was like, oh, sad day.
Do it.
Which, for those of you that know, Power Dark Side's a really good card. Makes you defeat a unit that you control. So I get to choose the unit, but if I only have one unit, guess what goes away? That unit. So,
such a strong card.
It's so good. So then I just looked at him. I was like, good job. He started laughing. He goes, yeah, this is a really hard deck to play against. And I'm like, no, it is, but I'm glad I got to, because I'd never really played against Bosk Blue. Yeah. Not with Vader.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It was really eye-opening to just kind of see how amazing it is when people just... I feel like there's still some diamonds in the rough when it comes to leader cards, because the more attention you give to it, the more strategies people are going to come up with. Right. And I think that with this game, you can take almost any leader. And yes, there's some bad ones. Hunter is a terrible card.
Awful.
I wish it wasn't. I really wish it wasn't.
We wish it was strong.
It's bad. You can take anything normally. and again, build a really good strategy around it and do well. Like Mitch.
Oh my gosh.
The Finnick yellow or whatever it is, right? Finnick red or whatever.
Finnick red.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's basically and he will tell you it's not. And it's hilarious.
Of course he will.
It's Sabine yellow.
Yeah.
But there's tweaks. It's different. It's different.
It's different.
That's what he says. But it's Fennec Red, and it's good.
Yes.
It's dumb. He shows up with a 1-round loss because he's late, and then he wins the next 3 games.
Yep. Millennium Falcon Piece of Junk is such a good card. That card is so strong.
So good. I want to actually... I think that's probably a card I need to get for Cunning Luke if I keep upgrading it. But
it's a good card.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my thing. Cunning Luke is my jam, and I've actually considered... putting, even though Vader's more, I think, competitively viable than Luke Cunning, even though they're both still very good decks, I am considering just kind of sidelining Vader and just focusing only on Cunning Luke so I can get the cards I need for it. Right,
and just soloing that deck to basically get the strategy where you want it to be.
And I think that would be my best advice, is because when I watched you do it, you had I think a bigger Yu-Gi-Oh collection than I did, so you were able to just kind of like get rid of and get some really cool stuff, and you have the capability to just buy every single deck probably with your Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. I mean, maybe not, but close. And that's just due to the fact that you've had so much built up over time, right? And
Large
so for me, I think I should have just did what you did. So and not only do you just solo the deck, and I think that would be my advice to new players coming in. It's like you pick a deck, and if you want to be competitive and you're a competitive person, pick a meta deck.
Yes.
Don't kid yourself. Pick a meta deck. Sabine Green's one of the cheaper ones. Yeah. Actually very inexpensive compared to Boba Yellow. Yeah. But pick a competitive one because you want to have some relevance at your locals or at planetary qualifiers or whatever. But at the same time, even if you're not competitive, you find a leader that you really like. Yep. Find a style of play that you really like. And this is where you can start like looking at YouTube videos, and soon you'll see our channel, the 501st Legion. Sorry, 503rd Legion. My God, the 503rd Legion, because we live in Oregon. So
Right.
the cool thing about that is like you'll start to see the gameplay and you'll start to see the styles of play, and then you can tell me how bad I am. But yeah, you should have done this. Well, crap.
Right. Yeah.
But
well,
no,
we don't mind the backseat.
Yeah, it's
we
fine.
know it's going to happen. It is what it is.
Yeah, but the idea is like you can look and see the style of play that you're gonna like. You like aggro, mid range, control. You know, just pick it and stay with it.
Yep.
And then once you have that deck completely built up to the power level that you were satisfied with, that's when I would explore other leaders, other decks like you did, right? You had Palpatine, and now you're like, I just got Vader.
Yep.
And it's like, shit.
Now I want to try that.
Vader Blue. Well, like I told you, I was like, I want to build Vader Blue. But due to price constraints, I just couldn't get it done right away. Yeah. And so I'm going to live vicariously through you. And
you're more than welcome to borrow
and watch you thanks and watch you play it. But like the idea of Vader Blue is going to be so strong. Including Palpatine Blue, really. Like it's just they're both going to be very, I think, good with when Twilight of the Republic comes in, just very because viable. Of like this, the style of game is going to probably change.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I think we're going to wrap up here in a second. We've been going for a good while now, but I just want to do another like touch point on what Chancellor just said. Yeah, pick a leader that resonates with you. That's like what kept me invested in the game for those first like growing pains, as I like to call them, when I was losing a lot at locals. Just pick a leader that really resonates with you, whether it's competitively viable or not. I would definitely lean competitively viable if that's, your spirit of play. But like Chancellor said, again, there's diamonds in the rough out there. One that I've been seeing pop up a lot actually is Hondo. And that deck came out of left field. I mean, that deck did not seem viable at all, but now, because Smuggle is such a strong mechanic, boosting your smuggled units is exceptionally strong.
It's gross.
Yeah, it's very good. It's like Tarkin, but less fragile to board wipes, I would say.
Well, and that's why tech is so incredibly good.
Oh my gosh, tech is crazy. If you don't have tech, go get it. I need to pick up my set, actually. They're just expensive. So, well, no, I say
hyperspace foils are expensive.
Yeah, I say expensive, but they're not.
Yeah, like the non-foil, non-hyperspace are like $2.
Yeah, they're not that bad. But for the ones that I want to get, I gotta like wait a little while until I sell all of my Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, and then we'll pick those up. But anyway, yeah. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for this one. I'm super excited for next week when we get to talk about Twilight of the Republic, because that set is shaping up to be amazing.
Yeah.
I swear every card I read out of that set, I want to play with that card.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that with the Twilight of the Republic set being talked about next week, we'll also touch on maybe a little bit of the meta. We weren't able to do it this time, and we kind of wanted to, but we got sucked into the nostalgia of remembering our past games. But we can speak a little bit to the meta and then how Twilight of the Republic is also going to affect it. As we talk about Twilight, and we'll of course go like, you'll see.
Yeah, you'll see. You'll definitely see. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I know it was a lot of like origin stories and stuff, but that's kind of what we wanted our first podcast to be. Just have that on the record, of like, this is where we started, this is how we got here, this is how we learned the game so far, and this is why we love it. So I think that overall this first podcast was a success, and I look forward to having everybody tune in next week when we